Hi and welcome back to my channel. I'm Tony, and if you follow me you know that we're still at the very early stages of this another amazing build from Armortek. This time it's the SD.KFZ.7. That is such a mouthful. And in the last video I put all the sort of suspension arms on, we put the idler arms on, and we talked about the next stage and where I'm going to go ahead a little bit just to get these sort of axle arms on, get as much onto the chassis as possible so it's ready for cleaning, priming and painting. So that's the plan for today's session. So I'm going to do the front, mid and rear suspension system with the previously assembled leaf springs. We're going to go on after we've got those installed. I'm going to do the drive case with the main gear, and then after that I'm going to start looking at the winch and anything else that I think needs to go onto this chassis ahead of me priming and painting it. So that's the plan. Thank you if you've joined me today. I really hope you're going to enjoy this video. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe because we have got a long journey ahead of us with this amazing build. I'm really looking forward to seeing this thing start to come to life and start to take shape, I should say, really. And another massive thank you to Peter Windmill. Peter is the owner of this kit and I'm doing a commission build for Peter, and I just hope that Peter's enjoying or happy with the progress so far. We are in communication regularly and I understand he is, and we will also share some of the ideas we've got for the detailing on this incredible model much later down the line. So anyway, in the normal fashion I'm going to reposition the camera and we'll get stuck in, but ahead of that just another massive thank you to all of you for your support, especially my members. You know who you are. I will be putting up some content in the next week or so for that, and if you are tempted, please consider it because it does help me a huge amount and you have access to some really interesting content on there as well. Enough of that, let's get cracking. I'll reposition the camera, we'll get this turned over the chassis because we've got to do some work on the other side, and then we'll see how far we get. So these are all the parts we're going to need to complete the front suspension setup. So this axle bridle, which is packed very carefully by Armortek, because it's actually just so well made, really so well made. Let's get that out. Slowly but surely we're starting to go through the many bags of kit. See, look at that, just beautifully packed. All right. It's quite greasy. That's going to have to be cleaned up. But just beautiful, beautiful thing. Just solid. There's some strength in there, so that needs to be cleaned up. Never going to get any paint on that. That's just engineering grease. We have the front axle, which this connects to here. We have the various cleats and everything else to attach this, and also the main suspension, which is this piece here, the front suspension, which we made up in the previous video. So that's all the parts. I've got all my fixings. I'm going to reposition the camera now and we'll get stuck in. So this is all cleaned up now. So is the axle. Removed all the engineering grease off of it, and I'm just checking to see if there's any handing requirements, and it's really straight, so I don't think there's an up or down or a right way for this to go. Same with the axle, there's no handing on that. All looks symmetric to me. So there's nothing stopping us just getting these on. Now my plan is I'm going to assemble everything. I will put the main leaf spring on, but I'm going to keep it loose because I've got to try and get it onto the front of the vehicle, into the chassis, making sure everything fits into place, so to speak. So first things first, let's go and put these in. So I'm just going to put some, I'm using red thread locker for this because this is quite an important part. Just going to wind that in by hand. Let's see if I can get it to, see if I can get that to go around. No. So we're going to have to leave that, just unwind that. I'm going to put that so that it's using my bench, make sure that this cleat here is flat on my bench. Again, thread locker. Let's see if I can get that to go around. Nope. So I'm going to have to unwind that. That's why I think red thread locker is the best for this. So that's that. They're on there. They're nice and flat. Next job. I think the next job for me would be to possibly put the leaf spring on, but I'm going to put this on instead. So this goes at the back here, and there's a little ball fixing here, and that. Let's just make sure I've got this right. Whoops. It goes that way round. Sorry. So it goes that way round. So the thread is presented here, and they do ask us to put some grease on here, which I will do once just before I install it. And then this threaded part here winds into the front of this. So again, using a red thread locker, because this is going to go under a lot of stress and a lot of movement. That's it. It winds all the way in there. You want to make sure this goes in as far as it can. That's it. And then when it's on the vehicle, because of the ball joint, it will move. It will allow that to move. So again, just beautifully engineered. So that's that. Now, do I put the leaf spring on at this stage? I'm just going to check the instructions and I'll come back. Yeah, so I will put the springs on now. I noticed actually there was a bit of play in here, so I undid these and positioned them slightly differently, so when I got them into the final position they are flat on my bench. Yeah, just double checking that's the case. And they're now tight, so this whole thing is really sturdy and tight. There's no play in that, and I was worried about that. So anyway, off camera I've undone these and repositioned them, and they're a lot better. They're a lot sturdier. So when you're doing this, or if you're doing one of these, make sure there's just no play in these whatsoever. Right, now because I'm doing this handed on the instruction shows you doing this from the underside, but I'm doing it actually top down or bottom up or whatever, whichever way, you know what I mean. I just need to be mindful of the position of the spring, because one side has got the loop in it so you can put the bolt through it and the other one doesn't. I'm not sure of the relevance of that, and in the orientation of if you're looking at this front on, it'll be this side here, my right, your left, I guess. So if I do it like that, when I come back round, it's as per the instructions. So I'm going to pop these in now. Hope all that makes sense. I'm not going to put the bolt in for this one. I'm just going to get this one in, because then I can see what I'm doing. I don't want to put any thread locker on this just yet. Right. I'm going to wind that in, but keep it loose. And then that one will do the same, just keep that one loose. So that's just, it's all in there a little bit loose, because I'm hoping I need a bit of flexibility to be able to get this thing to fit into position. So that's it. That's the assembly there. Hope that all makes sense. Let's now reposition the camera so I can show you getting installed onto the chassis. Okay, I think that's a pretty good camera position. First things first, we're going to just put a little bit of grease on the end of this ball here. They ask us to put some white lithium grease on here. Now, making sure it's the right orientation with this facing down, that should just pop in there. And hopefully with the bit of flexibility we've got, we can slide that into position, and it does. Let's have a look. There's a pin that goes through here. Now I've just got to make sure that we can get that hole aligned. Is that it? There we go. That should slide in there now. There it is. Might need a bit of encouragement. Let's have a look. That's in. There's an M5 nut that goes on the end of that. But before we do any of that, just want to make sure that we can put that in now. I'm going to put a couple of these in. These are little 6mm hex fixings. Slacking that off a bit. I am putting thread locker on these now. High degree of confidence. Let's keep that nice and loose for now. I'll get to the underside. Try and do this without turning it upside down, or up the right way, I should say. No, I managed to get it. Awkward just doing that. Anyway, that's that. Now I can go around and tighten these up. That's that. That's in there nice. Now, gonna. Temptation is to take these out. Now I know, well, I will take them out. Just to put a little bit of thread locker on there. Just hoping that spring doesn't move. Now we can tighten that up. Do the same with this one. Sorry, I've been quiet because I'm concentrating. Right, then the only other thing we need to do now is just put a nut on the back of that. Just checking the instructions to see if there's a washer required. And no, it just says secure with an M5 nut. So, a bit of thread locker on the thread. Maybe a bit more than that. It just worries me, things like this, parts like this, when you're using the vehicle, last thing I want is when Peter's using this, is something to go loose on it. Get the right socket on it. That's it. Just get that nice and tight, I guess. That's it. So that's doing its thing there. Just want to check the. Look at that. I don't know if you can see that. There's a nice bit of bounce in that, and that's just under my finger pressure. Isn't it beautifully engineered? Absolutely stunning. So that, as far as I know, or as far as I'm concerned, is that bit done. Happy with that. That's all tight. This is all tight now. These are tight. This is all in, doing its thing. It's rocking backwards or left to right. Plus it's got the bounce on it, the spring that it needs. Right, on to the next step. Right, so there's a couple of these axle ends that go in, and they slide in the end of the axle like that, and they're secured with an M3 12mm pin, both sides. So let's just make sure that this pin goes through that, and it goes through that. So it does. The only thing is, I mean, they don't ask you to do this, but I'm always a little bit worried about travel. Will this pin eventually fall out? So I'm just going to, my instinct tells me I should put a little bit of glue, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in this, just a tiny little bit of that 638, just so that it grabs it when it's in, because it takes a little bit of time to go off. I think this is probably the right solution. So let's slide that one in, put the pin in. Okay, using my nylon pliers, I'm just going to try and encourage that to go in. That's in now. That's it. And that 638 glue should prevent that pin from coming out. Just hope I don't have to get it out in the future. I don't think you will, Peter. I think once this is in, it's in. We'll do the same thing with that. I just always worry about over time whether something like that could present an issue if that popped out. So slide that one in, pin in. This pin, make sure you get these in perfect alignment. That's not going in as easy as the other one. Going to spin this round. Sorry, I'm just going to take it out of the camera shot for a moment. That's got it. Just wanted to make, I needed to get a full grip on that, so sorry, I had to put it into my favour. So that's it. That is this front suspension complete. Now let's move on to the midsection. Okay, so this mid suspension goes in this position here, but I'm probably going to have to elevate this up so that these arms that the leaf suspension sit on can fit. But I'm just pretty much, that's where it goes, and that's secured by one of these bolts here. I'm just going to test fit to make sure that this goes in with no major issues, because there's no way of winding it in. Oh, that's tight. There's nothing. I don't want to force that either. You could damage the thread on this. So I might have to get my little tap and die set out and tap this hole out. I just don't want to force that. That's so tight. What's the thread of that? I'll go and measure that. Oh, sorry, I'll go and measure this thread. But I can see, actually I can actually see inside there, it's a little bit rough. Not sure what went on. It's not the first time I had to do, I've done this a few times. So I'm going to check the, I'm just going to check the thread dimension on that, and then get my little tap set out and just run my little tap in there just to make this, hopefully, life a little bit easier. I'll just try that one more time. No, it gets a couple of turn, one turn, and then it's just will not move. Okay, let's not damage that. Let's go and get my little tap set out and deal with that.
A few moments later.
So it turns out it's an M8 thread, and I'm just gonna, I've got my little tap set here, so I'm just gonna gently offer that into the hole. It should straighten up as it goes in because the tap is tapered. I can feel it going in now, a little bit of resistance. I think it just needs that thread to be cleaned up. There we go, it's going in reasonably well now. That's it. Bit of luck. Ah, look at that. That's gone in. That's going in. Exactly. Well, maybe just. I'll have to go through again. Just at the end there. Thought I was all the way through. No doubt I'll probably have to do the same the other side. That's right. There we go. Alright, perfect. I can see there's a lot of spoil on the inside of there, so it did need to be cleaned out. These little tap and die sets are widely available on the old Tinternet, and very little cost, and come in really, really handy. Now let's run that through there again. Yeah, that's perfect. That's how it should be. Right. Okay, with a degree of confidence, I'm just going to spin this around just to have a look and see if I have the same issue this side. I'd be surprised if I don't. Yeah, same issue. Okay, so I'm going to tap that out and then I'll be back. Okay, so that's both holes now tapped out and clean. So with a degree of confidence, I'm going to pop this with a bit of thread locker on it, red thread locker. So again, this is a vital part. That goes in there all the way to the edge of the chassis perfectly. Right, so that's that. I've elevated up the chassis by, these are just like 12mm aluminium bars that I've got laying around in my workshop. Quite handy when I've sort of been doing my tanks and propping the batteries and locking the batteries in place. Now this slides over the top of that, and the idea, I believe, is that these arms are then, when weight's applied, are the arms that basically push the spring, or the spring pushes the arms up. So when it goes over bumps and all sorts of terrain, this is what does all the work. Now before I do that, I'm going to just apply some grease to this shaft here, as they tell us in the instructions. That's that. Slide that into position, and then that's locked into place by an M4 6mm butt fixing and an M5 washer. So again, actually I'm going to use the blue thread locker for this. Just pop that washer on. And tighten the whole thing up. That's it. So that's doing its job there, like that. So I'll do now is I'll spin the kit around. So that we can get to the other side. Here. Straighten that up. Make sure I can get that into position. Oh, that needs to be jacked up a bit more. Odd. Perfect. Right, so same deal as before. Red thread locker on. This needs a little bit of encouragement. I have cleaned that hole out. That's there. Same deal with the grease. Put the lid of that on. Slide that into place. Same deal with the little butt fixing. There you go. Use the M5 washer slightly bigger than the M4 fixing. I just like to keep these things, get them looking central. There you go. Well, no. Well, worst enemy sometimes, just trying to get things. Anyway, I could be here ages trying to get that washer to sit. The other one went in perfectly central. There we go. That'll do. That'll do. Right. So that is it. That's the mid suspension assembly completed. Right. We'll go on now and do the rear suspension. Right. So the first job we're going to do on these is to clean these supports up. And then we're going to, there's a threaded stud that needs to be installed in these. And then once, I believe the right way to go about this is to do the threaded stud first, get those all set, and then set them out onto the chassis. Now obviously this bit here needs to, the shoe, if you like the mid assembly ones, the shoe needs to sit in here. I'm calling it the shoe, but the block from the suspension arm needs to sit in here. So just having a quick look at that, I think that's going to be a little bit tricky, but we'll get around it, I'm sure. So that's, it's only because once these are on, it's going to be difficult. I will talk through my thinking about the painting as well, because I was on this kit here, I'm thinking a lot of the parts could have been primed and painted beforehand, but then you end up having to clean off a lot of the paint when you fix it. But I've had a good look around the model, and I'm confident I can get paint in all the areas that that needs to get paint. So that's that. Right, so then we've got these threaded studs here. These little threaded studs here. So I'm going to wind them in from the back, I think. Tell you what I'm going to do first. I'll put a tiny little bit of thread locker on that, because I think that needs to be locked into place. Just wind that all the way through. When you get to a certain point, then we can carry on. Not quite there yet. You want this to be flush on the back of this. So that's about it. I'm just going to put a little bit of thread locker on the back of that and stop that from unwinding. So that's exactly where we want it to be, nice and flush. So we'll just go on and do the same for these. I just find winding him in from the back is a lot easier, especially for me, with the old chunky finger syndrome. That's it, it's starting to go in now. Just hold that and spin that on. These little nylon pliers, lined pliers, are just invaluable. Allows you to do the job without having to worry about damaging anything. Just going to pull that through so it's flush on the back. Just a bit of thread locker on the back, won't do any harm. I'll go and do the other two now, and then I'll be back. Okay, so that's all four of these now complete. two go on here, one in this location, one in this location here, but because the thickness of the material here is thicker than it is here, because you've got this sort of recess here, there's a 12mm fixing that goes in from the back here, and there's a 16mm fixing that comes in from the back here. I'm going to put one into position and see how we get on, because before I do that, so let me explain. So this here, in this orientation, that in my humble opinion needs to sit so that that shoe, I'm calling it a shoe, sits into that position there, and that will then allow the suspension to work. Obviously, before I can know exactly where that's going to sit in relation to this, or this is going to sit in relation to this, I should say, I need to get one of these brackets on. And then this is, there's a slot here, you can see that, that secures the, or if you like, it's where that's positioned, the spring is positioned. Now, depending on how far I need to move this will depend on where this ends up in the relation to this particular support cleat. So kind of roughly speaking, that's the plan. Right, let's get this one on. So these are secured from the back on this one, 12mm. I'm going to pop one fixing through to start with. Just so I can see what I'm doing, just give that a couple of turns. That's that. And get the other one on. And then we can wind it all into position. Just pulling that away so I can see if I've located the hole alright. Looks like I have. I'll come back to that one in a minute. Just want to tighten the other side up. That should be absolutely flush on the top of that. Give that another couple of turns. That's nice, flush, lovely, tight. Right, so let's see. So that should slide through that. That then will be in that position there. Now Armortek do tell you to use an elastic band or some string just to hold these in place, but I don't know whether they're going to need that. We'll see. Until the tracks are on, it says. Right, so now we've got that, and we know that that is on there. Do you know what I might do? I might just put a bit of a clamp on that. It's really important to make sure that that shoe, I'm calling it a shoe, please forgive me if I've got the wrong terminology. Just for now, just while I work this out. So that will go in that way round. You probably can't see that because I've got this clamp in position, because I just don't want this to drop out and then I'll have to try and work out how to get it back in. So I'll get one of these 16mm fixings in from in the back, and then I'll take the clamp off. Brilliant. That's it, it's starting to bite now. Just get the other one. Then we can take that clamp off. I mean, this is my method of doing it. I'm sure there's other ways of doing it, but seems to be working all right. Okay, that's biting, so I can take this clamp off now. You see what I mean? This needs to be, this foot here needs to be sitting inside the gap there. Just pull that in. That's it. I think that's about where it should be. Looks like the right position. I might just give that a bit of a tap. Definitely dead centre. Right. So you can sort of see, I don't know if you can see the bit of deflection there. Don't have a lot of strength in my hands anymore, but that's it. That's where it should be. I hope I've done the right thing. It looks right. It feels right. It follows the same as these, with these feet, if you like, controlling the suspension. So I think that's about right. It's got to be right. Yeah, it's got to be. Right, I'll go on and do the other side. Right, so we're now onto the drive cases. Now that all the suspension has been completely finished. So first things first, we've got the outer casing here. 2 of these. These all need to be cleaned up. Just the residue after the CNC process. Difference when you make it when you make it clean, we give that a good old wipe of these incredible wipes, it just becomes a spotlessly clean surface, because obviously we're going to be bonding a bearing into there like that, so we need that surface to be nice and clean, free of any residue. And then while we're doing it, we might as well give the outside, I mean the whole thing will be cleaned ahead of it being primed anyway, but I just want to get all this residue off while we're in the process of cleaning. Might as well do this as well. It's hard to see on the camera probably, but the difference between the two, hopefully you can see that. So this, I'm going to get these done, and then I'm going to see how much time I've got left in today's session before I do anything else. So that's that. So we'll get these on, and then I'll take a view as to whether or not we carry on doing any more work to the chassis, because obviously the plan for me really is to get as much work done on the chassis as possible, but there's quite a few elements, like some of the bodywork supports and things like that, which I think should be put on at the stage when we're ready to prime and paint the whole thing. But that could end up, I could end up going down a proverbial rabbit hole with the amount of work it required to do that. So we'll take a view once these are on. These are always a little bit, I'm always a little bit nervous of these, because by the time the gear is in and everything else, and when you clamp it onto the side, you want this gear to be running really smoothly, and you don't want it to be, sometimes, I know in the past you used to be able to get a gasket for these, but I know, well, now Armortek's machined them sort of pretty accurately. That's no disrespect to the previous Armortek kits, but I know you can, or there were gaskets available for this, in the event that the gear was a little bit tight, just to push this face off to allow the gear to move smoothly inside. So that's pretty much ready. So I'm just going to wait for these to dry, and then we'll go and start looking at installing the bearings in here and onto the drive case that's currently on, that Peter's previously installed onto the chassis. So those two there, that's that. While we're waiting for those to dry, we might as well take the other one of these gears out of its packaging. Armortek really go, overboard with their packaging, and rightly so, because these need to be protected. Look how beautiful that gear is. I always get, I'm so impressed when I unpack these. The machining in them are just stunning. Now, they don't ask us to put grease on these, but I tend to grease the teeth up I just feel that it's right to do so. Although I will check the instructions. I don't recall seeing anything about grease, but your little slot there is for your taper lock there, and then this goes into a smaller bearing, which is with this bearing the smaller bearing goes onto the other part of the drive case. So they're just stunning, just an example of just precision engineering. Right, so I'm going to go and get all the fixings. These are hex fixings, 20mm hex fixings, M3 fixings that will secure this into place. I've got my glue. Once I've got my fixings, then we can go and stick all these bearings in, and then wait for a bit of time just for the glue to cure, and then we'll take it from there. So they're all dry now. Now these two bearings are bigger of the bearings, and again you get lots of bearings with this kit, but it's quite clear in the instructions which bearings go where, so don't get too hung up about that. They are very clearly labelled in the bags that you get. Right, so the first thing I'm going to do here is just going to apply some of this 638 not going crazy with this, and then I'm just going to give that a bit of a tap. Make sure that is down as far as it can go. I'm just checking in the joint. Oh, that's just slipped out. Classic 638 glue. Takes a while to go off. That's better. Very satisfying click when that's in. Yeah, it's tight up against that. That's fine. Just wipe off the excess. Do the same to the next one. That's that. That's gone in very nicely. Again, just wiping off that excess. Double checking that it's hard up against the case. Give it a bit of a tap. That's that. Now they're going to take a little while to go off. While they're going off, let's spin this around so I can I'll change the camera so we'll show you the bearings that go on the drive case on the chassis. Okay, so while we're waiting for these to cure, the glue to go off on those, we might as well put these in. Same deal really. This time around I'm going to hold it between my fingers like that, and just using the edge just to rotate that around, just to get a bit of glue on all sides of it, holding the edge. Very satisfying sound when that snaps into position. I'm just gonna make sure that is in, and it is. That's that. Let's spin that around so we can do the other side. It's obviously I've removed all the masking paper that Peter had put on here to protect this while he was painting it. Right, same deal. Just want to make sure that's yes, perfect. Let's hope this one goes in as nicely as the other one. Just holding it on the edge again. It's in. Just going to give that a bit of a tap. Not hitting it that hard, guys, don't worry. It's just making sure that it's sitting flush in there, and it is. Right, so now we've got to wait until the glue goes off, a few minutes, probably 10 minutes, and then I'll come back and we'll start looking at putting the drive gears in. So this should be a familiar sight to most of you. This is the main drive case. This is where the sprocket eventually will be mounted onto here. This is where the drive gear comes through and connects with the main drive gear here. So we are ready to go. What I like to, now I know Armortek say don't put grease on these, but there's something that begs me to put grease on these, just because it's a metal component. And I'm just going to brush some grease onto the main gears themselves, the teeth if you like. And one thing I guess you're mindful of is that over time, residue and just general grit or metal wear and tear can build up on the grease. But I also just feel that it's the right thing to help with the running mechanism. So jury's out on this, but I just want to make sure that it's running as well as it can. So that's that. Well, put it in the right way would be a good idea, wouldn't it? So that just slides into position onto this, hopefully. I might just give it a bit of a tap. So that's the idea. It just runs like that. Right, now we're going to put this case, the main drive case, over the top of it. And that, you can hear it running a little bit, rubbing a little bit, but that's pretty standard. Right, I'm going to put a couple of fixings in this. Just using the blue thread locker on this, because at some point in the future Peter may need to get this off, so I don't want to make it difficult for him. I'm going to put just one fixing on there, not too tight, one down the bottom. I know Peter plugged all these holes ahead of priming it, so they should go in without too much trouble. So that's it, just loosely fitted. So we'll go on now and just put the rest of them in, and we can then go around and tighten them all up. So I'll put one on this side. And then of course I'll mask all this off ahead of priming and painting. Just notice there's one little plug left there. Just noticed that. Thought I'd got all of those out. There you go. That's that one out. I don't tighten these up until the very end. All the while just making sure this is spinning freely, and it is. So I'm going to carry on getting these bolts in, tightening them up, and then we'll come back and I'll probably do the other side with you as well, but let me get these all in first. So that's that all bolted up and running freely, running really smoothly, really pleased with that. As I said, if you find that you've got this and it's grinding or it's really stiff, then you cannot let that go. You're going to have to take it off and either get the gasket like I talked about from Armortek, or try and put it on, but don't over tighten these hex fixings. They'll go in and you'll know when they're in the right, because they'll just stop. Don't over tighten them, and then you should end up with the same result. So that's it. Let's spin this around now so we can tackle the other side. Right, so same deal as before. Gear, grease, I know Armortek watch my videos, they'll probably be upset that I'm using grease, but just guys, I think it's right. Especially these big steel components. I know all the risks associated with it, but I really, as I said, I want to give Peter the best possible build, and I think this, I'm old school really when it comes to grease and metal moving parts, especially gears. So that's that. So that's that. Hopefully this goes together as simply and straightforward as the other side. That's gone in there really nice. And you can see that when the drive gear comes through here, it picks up this main gear and rotates it. Right, so same deal. Just needs a bit of a tap, I think. Nope, it's in. Right, so same deal again. Hex fixings, blue thread locker. Going to put one fixing in here, just loosely. When you're doing this, continually rotate this shaft around, making sure that it's running as it should do. Opposite side. Seems to take forever to go in, but it's all part and parcel of it. Right, so that's that, and we'll put one more in up here in real time. Just making sure that's spinning all the while you do this. So I'll carry on. I'll put the rest of these fixings in, get them all tightened up, and I'll be back to camera. So there you have it. That's the end of this particular build session, and moved on quite a lot. I'm really pleased, actually. It's been an absolute pleasure again to work with these amazing components. And when you look at what is effectively quite a complex setup with the suspension, I think Armortek, you have absolutely nailed it again. Just incredible. And what a joy to be able to work with these amazing parts. And if you're one of my followers and you've built one of these, and there's a couple of you I think you are, they're out there. I'm going to shout out to Colin. You know, credit to you for getting so far with this amazing kit, because it is complex, but it's so enjoyable to build. Anyway, that's as far as I'm going to go today, and actually it leaves us in a really good position for the next build session. So the next build session, I'm going to carry on thinking about all the parts I can put on the chassis at this stage, ready for cleaning, priming and painting. I'm also going to have a look at the winch as well, because I don't want to go down that hole today, because I've got the motion pack that Peter supplied as well. So I'm going to look at whether I need to think about putting that in at the same time. And as I said, just carefully planning out what parts should go onto the chassis at this stage. So for instance, I'm going to put the track tensioners on, the wheel axles, some of the body mounts, and any other part that I feel that is going to be really difficult to paint and get to once we go to, you know, if we go too far down the road. So that is it. I really hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, please give me a thumbs up. And again, if you're new to my channel, please subscribe, because those subscriptions really keep me motivated and keep my channel moving from strength to strength. So I really do appreciate all of that support. And another massive thank you to all of my members. You know who you are, of course, for all your amazing support and continued support. And I promise I will be putting up more content very soon on that area. And finally, just a massive thank you again to Peter. Peter Windmill has given me this model to build for him. This is his kit, and it's an absolute privilege to build it for you, Peter. And I really hope you like the way I'm going about the build. And of course, a final massive thank you to all of my supporters, my subs, for the continued support I get, those wonderful comments, those thumbs up. It all means a great deal to me. So I will now sign off by saying I'm Tony. I love building these kits, and I cannot wait to get started on the next session. See you soon.